Hey, you. You're finally awake.
The PlayStation Portable wasn't just a handheld, it was a technical marvel that brought console-quality gaming to the palm of your hand. While many doubted whether such a small device could deliver truly stunning visuals, the PSP quickly proved its capabilities with a library full of graphically impressive titles, from sprawling 3D environments and detailed character models to fluid animations and cinematic cutscenes. Some games pushed the hardware to its absolute limits. These weren't just great handheld games, they stood toe-to-toe with full console experiences, showcasing just how powerful Sony's first little portable really was. So today we're going to be looking at 7 visually jaw-dropping games for the PSP. As always, this isn't a definitive list, and this is just 7 I've picked out, so if there are ones I haven't talked about, put them in the comments below, and if you have played some of these, I want to hear about some of your memories. Now before we get into our list, if you really think I deserve it, please hit that like and subscribe button, it really helps the channel grow. Retro Wars is also a weekly podcast where this week we're covering Aladdin for the Super Nintendo. And we've got a $1 a month Patreon where you can join the Smut Squad, get involved in the podcast and get your own additional show. Right, let's get into it, shall we? 7 visually jaw-dropping games for the PSP. Final Fantasy Type 0. Final Fantasy Type 0 originally released for the PS Portable in Japan in 2011 and later remastered for consoles and PC in 2015, stands out as one of the darkest, most politically charged entries in the Final Fantasy franchise. While it never achieved the widespread fame of its mainline counterparts, Type 0 built a cult following for its mature themes, unique gameplay mechanics, and somber storytelling. It takes place in the Fabula Nova Crystallis mythos, the same universe as Final Fantasy XIII, but it tells a story unlike any Final Fantasy game before it. The game is set in the world of Orience, which is divided into 4 nations, each harnessing power from a different magical crystal. When the militant Melitesi, I butchered that. I know that's not how it's pronounced, I can't remember, it's a long time since I played this game, leave me alone. Either way, another bad neighbour invades its neighbours, can we just get that in? That's how it goes. Okay, so they invade and a brutal war erupts. Players take control of Class 0, a group of 14 elite candidates from the Dominion of Rubrum who are thrust into the front lines of the conflict. From the outset, the tone is dire, and the story doesn't shy away from portraying the horrors of war. Death is constant, political manipulation is rampant, and the cost of victory often feels too high. The narrative pushes into bleak territory, making it one of the first few Final Fantasy games to deal so heavily with morality, patriotism, and emotional trauma. Gameplay-wise, Final Fantasy Type 0 deviates significantly from the traditional turn-based formula. It features real-time action combat, with players able to swap between 3 active characters from Class 0 on the fly. Each cadet has unique weapons and abilities. Ace uses magical cars, King has dual pistols, and Queen fights with the sword. This gives the combat a strategic and fast-paced edge, as players must adapt to different enemies and situations quickly. The system encourages experimentation, and choosing the right trio for a mission becomes a key part of success. Outside of combat, the game features a semi-open world map, towns, and a base hub where players can interact with NPCs, take on side quests, and develop their characters. Time is a limited resource in Type 0, as missions and activities must be chosen wisely as days pass in-game and certain events are missable. This time management element adds a layer of realism and tension that complements the wartime setting. It also encourages replayability, as players are unlikely to see everything in a single playthrough. Visually, the game's remastered versions makes improvements, but some of the PSP era design limitations are still noticeable, particularly in NPC models and textures. However, the art design is consistently strong, with military-themed uniforms, grandiose architecture, and dramatic lighting capturing the tone of the story effectively. The musical score is haunting and powerful, blending orchestral swells with tense battle themes and mournful piano pieces that enhance the emotional depth of what's going on. Critically, Type 0 received mixed to positive reviews. Its gameplay and tone were praised for their boldness and maturity, but some critics found the story to be convoluted and the pacing uneven. Others were off-put by the abrupt tonal shifts and the lack of character development for all 14 cadets, as while some shined in cutscenes, others were often left underutilised. And yeah, that's quite difficult to do 14 characters to get equal time. Still, the game's willingness to explore darker themes helped it stand apart from the other entries in the franchise. Despite its flaws, Final Fantasy Type 0 remains a fascinating experiment. It captures the brutality of war in very few ways JRPGs dare to, and it challenges players to question the cost of power and loyalty. For fans looking for something outside the conventional Final Fantasy mold, it offers a raw, emotional, and action-packed experience. Though often overlooked, Type 0 earned its place as one of the most ambitious and daring spin-offs in the series' long history. Tekken 6. When Tekken 6 was first announced to PlayStation Portable, many fans were skeptical. Could a handheld system really deliver the same type gameplay, high-speed action, and visual polish of its console counterparts? Released in 2009, Tekken 6 on PSP surprised many by delivering one of the most faithful and content-rich portable fighting games of its time. While it inevitably makes some compromises due to hardware limitations, the core Tekken experience remains remarkably intact. At its heart, Tekken 6 on PSP is a 3D one-on-one fighting game with a deep roster of 41 playable characters, including fan favourites like Jin Kazama, Kazuya Mishima, Horang, and Nina Williams, as well as newcomers such as Lars Alexanderson and Alicia Bosnevich, however you want to pronounce that one. Each fighter has a unique moveset, complete with juggles, combos, sidesteps, and launches, maintaining a signature blend of martial arts realism and over-the-top flair the Tekken series is known for. Despite the limitations of the PSP's hardware, the game's controls feel awesome thanks to smart button mapping and tight frame timing. One of the most impressive aspects of Tekken 6 on the PSP is just how close it comes to replicating the visuals of the console version. The models are slightly simplified and some effects like lighting and particle systems are toned down, but the character animations are fluid and detailed. The game runs at a smooth 60 frames per second, even during intense bouts, which is crucial for the game when timing is everything. The backgrounds, while static compared to the interactive environments in the PlayStation 3 version, are still attractively rendered, and the overall art direction holds up well on the small screen. The PSP version retains the core models from the main game, including Arcade, Versus, Time Attack, Survival and Practice. The story mode, while simplified compared to the console scenario campaign, still gives players a basic narrative path to follow for each character, complete with cutscenes that flesh out their individual arcs. There's no online play, which was a disappointment even at launch, but the ad hoc local multiplayer works well and is a great way to enjoy competitive matches. Customization is another strong point. Players can earn currency by playing various modes and use it to purchase outfits, hairstyles, accessories, and items for their favourite characters. This cosmetic layer adds a layer of personality and replayability, encouraging players to keep battling to unlock more content. While not as extensive as in later Tekken entries, it still adds a welcome layer of personalisation. Sound design is another area the PSP version holds its own. The game features a full suite of musical tracks, many of which are carried over from the console version. Each stage has its own theme, often blending electronic beats, rock guitars and orchestral elements. The voice acting is consistent with the main release, and attacks feel impactful thanks to sharp sound effects that emphasise every punch, kick and slam. Critically, Tekken 6 to the PSP was praised for its sheer ambition and technical excellence. Reviewers and players alike noted how faithfully it translated the fighting mechanics of the mainline Tekken experience onto a handheld device. Some criticisms were directed at the lack of online play and toned down visual elements, but these were generally seen as acceptable compromises for such a robust portable game. In hindsight, Tekken 6 on the PSP stands out as one of the best handheld fighters of its generation. It delivers complex, satisfying combat, an expansive character roster, 41 characters is ridiculous, smooth performance, and a surprising amount of content for a portable release. It may not fully replace the home console version, but for fans of the series or fighting game enthusiasts looking for a pocket-sized powerhouse, Tekken 6 on the PSP punches far above its weight class. Phantasy Star Portable. Phantasy Star Portable released for the PlayStation Portable in 2008 in Japan and 2009 in the West. It's a spin-off of Phantasy Star Universe and part of Sega's long-running Phantasy Star series. Originally born as a classic turn RPG on the Sega Master System and the Genesis, the franchise took a major turn into the online multiplayer action RPG territory in the 2000s. Phantasy Star Portable adapts that newer model for handheld play, offering a single-player experience with the option for local multiplayer, and it succeeds as a surprisingly rich and addictive RPG that fits neatly in your pocket. The game is set in the Goral system, a futuristic solar system composed of 3 planets, which humans coexist with other races: cats, which are androids, humans, magical beings, and beasts, powerful and physical warriors. The player takes on the role of a customizable guardian, a member of an elite task force assigned to protect the peace across the system. You team up with Vivian, a cast companion with an evolving personality, and unravel a storyline that touches on rebellion, artificial intelligence, and the nature of identity. While the plot is not particularly groundbreaking, it provides enough intrigue to keep players engaged and gives the game a more personal touch than Phantasy Star Universe's more MMO-like feel. Where Phantasy Star Portal truly shines is its gameplay loop. It features real-time combat in fully 3D environments, with players able to freely move, attack, dodge and cast text, which is the game's version of magic. Combat is fast-paced and players can wield a variety of weapons, swords, rifles, daggers, spears, wands, and more, each with their own attack animation and abilities. Weapons level up the more you use them, unlocking new moves and techniques over time. This encourages experimentation and grinding, which is central to the game's addictive nature. The class system is also robust. Players can choose a race and a battle type, such as the Hunter, Ranger or Force, which influences their stats and preferred equipment. As you play, you can change your character and experiment with different playstyles, giving the game excellent replay value. Character progression is satisfying, with a balance of gear hunting, stat growth and skill development. Visually, Phantasy Star Portable makes good use of the PSP's hardware. Character models are detailed, environments are varied and colourful, and special effects like photon attacks and text are flashy without being overwhelming. Some textures can be flat and enemy designs occasionally repeat, but the overall presentation is clean and futuristic. The sci-fi aesthetic, with its sleek cities, alien landscapes and high-tech weaponry, gives the game a distinctive personality compared to the more fantasy-heavy RPGs on the platform. One major drawback, however, is lack of online multiplayer. While the game supports ad hoc local co-op for up to 4 players, there's no infrastructure mode, meaning friends must be physically nearby to link systems. This is a notable letdown, especially since online functionality was a core part of the Phantasy Star universe. Despite this, the single-player campaign is lengthy and filled with optical missions, loot grinding, and character development to keep solo players busy for dozens of hours. The soundtrack fits the futuristic setting well, mixing electronic beats with atmospheric melodies. While it doesn't quite reach the iconic status of older Phantasy Star music, it supports the action nicely and gives the game an overworldly tone. Phantasy Star Portal was well received by fans and critics alike, particularly for how it adapted the online-style RPG for portable offline play. It set the stage for an even bigger sequel, Phantasy Star Portable 2, but remains a solid title in its own right. For RPG fans looking for a loot-heavy, action-oriented and sci-fi adventure on the PSP, Phantasy Star Portal is a rewarding and highly replayable choice that demonstrates the franchise adaptability beyond its classic roots. Manhunt 2. Manhunt 2, developed by Rockstar London and released for PlayStation Portal in 2007, is one of the most controversial games ever made, so much so that it was delayed, heavily censored, and even banned in several countries. As the sequel to Rockstar North's grim 2003 original, Manhunt 2 carries on the series' reputation for extreme violence and disturbing subject matter. But beyond the controversy lies a stealth-based horror game that, while flawed, managed to deliver a tense and psychologically dark experience, particularly impressive for a handheld title on the PSP. The story of Manhunt 2 centers on Dr. Daniel Lamb, a former scientist at a research facility called the Pickman Project. After escaping from a mental institution along the violent and unpredictable Leo Casper, Daniel finds himself caught between fragments of his shattered mind and a violent conspiracy. As the narrative unfolds, players piece together Daniel's forgotten past while being led through a descent into paranoia, murder, and psychological torment. Unlike the first game's snuff film narrative, Manhunt 2 leans into a more cerebral kind of horror, one that explores memory manipulation, mental illness, and government conspiracies. Gameplay in Manhunt 2 remains firmly rooted in stealth. Players must sneak through environments, back alleys, insane asylums, brothels, and mansions, avoiding enemies and taking down with brutal executions. The execution system, the series' trademark mechanic, returns with a gruesome flair. Players can choose between 3 layers of lethality, with the most violent executions being the hardest to perform but the most disturbing to watch. These kills are often committed with found objects, plastic bags, glass shards, power tools, and more. On the PSP version, sadly, these scenes were censored, often using visual filters and screen blurs to obscure the most explicit moments. Yet even without those filters, the violence remains graphic and unsettling. Stealth is paramount here. Direct confrontation usually results in death, as Daniel's not a superhuman killer, but a vulnerable man pushed to the edge. Players must crouch silently, stick to the shadows, and lure enemies with noise distractions to pull off successful kills. While the AI can be inconsistent, sometimes as sharp as a ninja and sometimes as dim as a brick, it still provides unpredictability to keep tension high. The limited visibility and tight camera angles on the PSP make every encounter feel claustrophobic and dangerous. One of the surprising strengths of Manhunt on the PS2 is just how well it translates to the handheld. The controls are responsive, with crouching, targeting, and sneaking all mapped efficiently to the PSP's limited button layout. Visually, it's impressive for a PSP game. Environments are detailed with atmospheric lighting and grimly textures that reinforce the game's oppressive tone. The character models aren't particularly complex, but the overall presentation captures the feeling of dread and madness that defines the experience. The grimy aesthetic, blood-stained walls, flickering lights, and trash-strewn streets fits perfectly on the small screen. Sound design is another highlight. The audio work in Manhunt 2 is deliberately unsettling. Whispers, heartbeats, distant screams, and ambient industrial noises play a big role in crafting the game's suffocating mood. The voice acting, particularly from the dual protagonists Daniel and Leo, is well performed and effectively conveys Daniel's internal struggle and Leo's violent influence. The soundtrack is sparse but effective, relying on tension-building drones rather than traditional music. Reception for Manhunt 2 was mixed. Some praised its boldness and willingness to explore taboo topics, while others criticise it for sacrificing substance for shock value. On PSP, the game is commended for how well it ran, considering the system's limitations. However, the censorship pissed off fans of the first game who felt the experience had been diluted. Yet even with the filters, the game's violent tone and twisted narrative remained largely intact. In the end, Manhunt 2 on the PSP is a disturbing, flawed, but deeply atmospheric experience. It's not for the faint of heart, nor is it an easy game to recommend broadly, but for those interested in a horror-style hybrid that pushes boundaries, it offers a gripping, tense journey into psychological darkness, one that still lingers long after the screen goes dark. God of War: Chains of Olympus. When God of War: Chains of Olympus launched on the PlayStation Portable in 2008, it immediately redefined what handheld gaming was capable of. Developed by Ready at Dawn in collaboration with Santa Monica Studio, the prequel to the original God of War brought the full force of Kratos' brutal, mythological rampage to the small screen without sacrificing the series' signature combat, cinematic flair, or emotional depth. It wasn't just a scaled-down spin-off, it was a fully fledged God of War experience, expertly adapted for portable play. Set before the events of the original God of War, Chains of Olympus explores a lesser-known chapter in Kratos' tragic past. At this point in his timeline, he's still a servant of the gods, seeking redemption from his sins while carrying out missions in their name. The story kicks off with Kratos battling Persian invaders and monsters across the burning city of Attica, but things escalate quickly when the sun mysteriously disappears from the sky. This leads into a dark quest involving the goddess Persephone, the Titan Atlas, and the underworld itself. For a PSP game, the narrative is surprisingly rich, with themes of loss, duty, and sacrifice coming to the forefront, especially in Kratos' emotional encounters involving his daughter Calliope. Gameplay in Chains of Olympus is classic God of War, refined for the PSP. Players control Kratos in a third-person action setting, using iconic blades of chaos to rip through enemies with fluid combo-based attacks. The control scheme was cleverly adapted to the PSP's limited buttons, and despite lacking a second analog stick, the game never felt cumbersome or unresponsive. Combat is just as satisfying as it on consoles, fast, aggressive, and visceral. In addition to the brutal melee system, Chains of Olympus includes light platforming, environmental puzzles, and massive set pieces. From climbing the Temple of Helios to navigating the eerie feats of Elysium, the level design constantly shifts and the experience varied. Kratos also gains magical abilities like the Ifrit fire attack and the Light of Dawn, which offer strategic variety in battle. There's a sense of scale and grandeur throughout the journey that's rarely seen on handheld systems. Visually, Chains of Olympus is a technical marvel for the PSP. The graphics are stunning, with detailed character models, smooth animations, and vast environments that rival early PS2 titles. The lighting and particle effects and cutscenes all push the hardware to its limit. Ready at Dawn's engine optimization ensured the game ran at a stable frame rate without compromising its cinematic ambitions. The bosses are especially impressive, from a towering basilisk to the massive Titan Atlas. The game frequently delivered spectacle on a portable scale. For the sound design, there's another standout feature. The orchestral score is sweeping and dramatic, reinforcing the mythological tone and emotional weight of Kratos' journey. Voice acting is also top-notch, with Terrence C. Carson reprising his role as Kratos, bringing a gruff intensity to every line. The roars of beasts, clangs of chains, and ominous ambient effects all help immerse the players in war-torn world of ancient Greece. God of War: Chains of Olympus received critical acclaim upon release and is often regarded as one of the PSP's finest titles. It demonstrated that handheld games didn't need to compromise on quality, scale, or depth. It also showed how prequels could enhance a franchise's lore rather than feel like a throwaway side story. For fans of God of War, it offered more of what made the series iconic. For newcomers, it served as a brilliant introduction. In conclusion, God of War: Chains of Olympus isn't just a great portable game, it's a great game, period. With its gripping story, polished combat, and impressive visuals, it proved the PSP was capable of delivering console-quality experiences on the go, and it remains a must-play title in the God of War saga and a shining example of what handheld gaming can achieve when done right. Final Fantasy Dissidia 012, or is it 012? I don't know, I've always just called it 012. Someone's going to come at me and say I've got it completely wrong, whatever. Either way, it's one of the most ambitious and content-rich games on the PlayStation Portable. Released in 2011 by Square Enix, it serves as both a prequel and a definitive version of the original Dissidia, Final Fantasy, blending fast-paced real-time combat with RPG mechanics and an expansive celebration of the franchise's storied history. And for the sake of argument, I'm just going to start saying Dissidia, because I don't know which way it is, okay? That just makes it easier. We are talking about the sequel though, okay? Got it. Dissidia improves on nearly every aspect of its predecessor, and stands alone as one of the most polished and feature-packed fighting RPGs ever made for handheld devices. At its core, it's a crossover fighting game featuring iconic heroes and villains from across the Final Fantasy series, spanning from the original Final Fantasy I up until Final Fantasy XIII. The central story revolves around the 12th War. Oh yeah, it probably is Dissidia 12 then, isn't it? Oh well. Either way. The central story revolves around the 12th War between the gods Cosmos, representing harmony, and Chaos, representing discord, in which chosen warriors are summoned to do battle in an endless cycle of conflict. New characters introduced this installment, like Lightning from Final Fantasy XIII, Cayenne from 4, it is Cayenne. It's not Kane, it's Cayenne, deal with it. And Tifa from Final Fantasy VII add depth to the cast and provide fresh perspectives on the cosmic war. While the plot is steeped in the series' signature melodrama and philosophical musings about fate, identity, and memory, Dissidia is more about character interactions and fan service rather than traditional storytelling. Players get to see unlikely team-ups and rivalries such as Leguana from Final Fantasy VIII joking with Van from Final Fantasy XII, or Sephiroth brooding alongside Gobez. For fans of the series, these moments are a treat, making Dissidia feel like a playable love letter to Final Fantasy's legacy. Gameplay is where the game really shines. Battles take place in a fully 3D arena where characters can run along walls, dash through the air, and engage in high-speed combat. The core mechanic revolves around two types of attacks, bravery and HP. Bravery attacks steal points from your opponent, and HP attacks deal actual damage based on your current bravery score. This creates a dynamic back and forth where players must manage risk and reward, building up power before unleashing devastating blows. The system rewards aggression, strategy, and timing. Each character has a unique moveset based on their home game, ranging from Lightning's paradigm shift mechanic to Terra's long-range magic and Jack's brutal melee combos. Characters feel true to their origins while being reimagined to the fast-paced arena combat. The addition of assist characters into Dissidia adds another layer of strategy, allowing players to call in allies for combo extensions, counters or defensive escapes. Beyond combat, the game features a massive amount of content. There's a full story mode with an overall exploration and turn-based movement, side quests, alternate scenarios, and a huge number of unlockables, including costumes, music tracks, summon stones, and player avatars. RPG fans will also enjoy the gear and leveling systems, which lets you customize your characters with equipment, abilities, and passive bonuses. It's a hybrid of fighting game mechanics and JRPG progression, which gives the game a remarkable depth. Visually, the game is a technical achievement on the PSP. Character models are detailed, environments are vast and varied, and the particle effects during combat are dazzling. Iconic locations like Zanarkand, Alexandria, and the World of Darkness are beautifully recreated. The soundtrack is equally impressive, mixing orchestral themes of classic Final Fantasy themes with new compositions. From the rousing Battle of the Brig Bridge, awesome, to the haunting One Wicked Angel, the music is a major highlight. Critics and fans praise the game for its expanded roster, deep mechanics, and sheer volume of content. While the learning curve can be steep for newcomers and the story occasionally bloated, its gameplay depth and reverent treatment of the Final Fantasy universe make it a standout title on the PSP. In conclusion, Final Fantasy Dissidia 12 is not just a fighting game, it's a celebration of decades of RPG history. Whether you're a long-time fan of the series or a newcomer looking for a unique action RPG fighting game, it delivers hours of stylish, strategic and nostalgic fun. It remains one of the PSP's crowning achievements and a must-play Final Fantasy fans. And finally, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII, released in 2007 for the PSP, is one of the most beloved and emotionally resonant games on the system. Developed by Square Enix, it serves as a prequel to legendary Final Fantasy VII, expanding the lore and focusing previously undeveloped character Zack Fair. What could have been a simple spin-off or a nostalgia-driven cash grab instead became a powerful and poignant narrative-driven action RPG, one that pushed the limits of the PSP and gave players an unforgettable glimpse into the events leading up to one of gaming's most iconic stories. The game centers on Zack, a cheerful and ambitious soldier second class working for the Shinra Electric Power Company. At first, he comes across as idealistic and light-hearted, but as the story unfolds, players witness his growth, his moral struggles, and his increasing awareness of Shinra's corruption. Zack's journey takes him from a wide-eyed hero to a tragic martyr, and along the way, he forges relationships with key figures from the Final Fantasy VII universe, including Cloud Strife, Sephiroth, Aerith, and Angeal. These connections make Zack's fate all more impactful, especially for fans familiar with the original events of the game, and I cried. One of the only few games in gaming history that has made me cry, and I did, and I even knew what was going to happen, I still cried. That's how good this game is. At the heart of Crisis Core is its combat system, a fast-paced, real-time battle mechanic that marked a significant departure from the turn-based tradition of the original Final Fantasy VII. Players control Zack directly, with the ability to dodge, block, use magic, summon creatures, and unleash devastating attacks using a combination of regular strikes and powerful limit breaks. While it's streamlined and action-orientated, the combat still retains the strategic depth of RPGs. Equipment, material loadouts, and special abilities can be customized to suit your playstyle, and as Zack levels up, he becomes increasingly versatile and powerful. One of the most unique features of the game is the DMW, the Digital Mind Wave system. This slot machine style spins constantly during combat, occasionally triggering special attacks, status boosts, or limit breaks based on Zack's relationship with other characters. While it seems random at first, the system is tied to the narrative. Zack's emotional bonds affect the DMW, adding a layer of personal connection to the gameplay. It's an odd but strangely compelling feature that reinforces the story's emotional weight. Graphically, Crisis Core is stunning for the PSP. The character models are detailed and expressive, environments are varied and atmospheric, and even the game features high-quality cinematic cutscenes that rival some of the PS2's. From the steel corridors of Shinra HQ to the sunlight churches of Midgard slums, the game consistently impresses with its presentation. The visual storytelling, especially in the heartbreaking final scenes, elevates the experience and remains etched in the minds of the players. The soundtrack is another highlight. It blends electric guitars, orchestral arrangements, and remixes of the classic Final Fantasy VII themes to create a rich emotional score. Tracks like The Price of Freedom and Why have become iconic in their own right, enhancing the emotional gravity of Zack's journey. Crisis Core received critical acclaim upon release, praised for its emotional storytelling, character development, and technical achievements on a handheld platform. While some critics took issue from the repetitive side missions and occasional pacing issues, these flaws are minor compared to the game's narrative power and satisfying gameplay loop. In conclusion, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII isn't just a prequel, it's a heartfelt and standalone experience that deepens the lore of one of gaming's most legendary universes. It transforms Zack Fair from a background character into a tragic hero in his own right, and its emotional ending resonates long after the credits roll. God damn it does, I cried like a baby. For Final Fantasy fans, this game is an absolute must and it's completely essential, and now you can get it as a remastered version, as it's a moving, stylish and unforgettable piece of storytelling. And that's it, 7 games which I thought were visually outstanding for the PSP. What do you think of that list? Are the ones I need to be talking about? If so, put them in the comments and we can always do a follow-up. Until then, as I said at the beginning, if you really think I deserve it, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you again in 3 days from the video. My name's been Danny, take care of yourself, bye bye.